Welcome, welcome, welcome. And if I didn't say it enough, welcome to the Remember When podcast. I am your host, Jehuu Culcrick. Alongside me today is the Stanford grad, the professor, the sports law professor at Michigan State University, Deb Snyder. Deb, how you doing?
Doing good today, Jay. Looking forward to continuing the conversations we've been having the last couple of days.
Exactly. And also, too, as always, making us look good from looks, sound, everything is producer Ray, handling everything on the back end of things. Well, yeah, let's jump into it. It's been I've seen you quite a bit and talked to you quite a bit this week, Deb.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. Just for our viewers and listeners, yesterday had a nice lunch. Lomas and myself, Deb treated us to lunch at the DAC, better known as the Detroit Athletic Club. She gave me a nice tour of the facilities, the stadium bar, great place for food, great view of Comerica Park. The Pirates were in town playing the Tigers. They had a double hitter. So we got opportunity, had some good food, good drinks, and even better, great conversation. And so, yeah, so we're just jumping into things here. Deb, how's your week been?
It's been a good week. I got to spend time with both you and Lomas, and so that's always fun. Got some good behind-the-scenes NFL stories.
Some great stories. Excellent stories.
Yes, some great stories. Hopefully we'll get to a few of those today.
Yeah, definitely. And for our listeners out there, just so you know, as always, the Remember When podcast is brought to you by Taguava Coffee. Taguava Coffee is a great coffee. It's farm to cup, meaning every single cup, every single bean is tracked directly from the farms in Guatemala all the way to your doorsteps. Go to taguava.com, use the promo code Remember When at checkout to receive 10% off your orders. And the great thing about Taguava and the guys, we had them on here, they're a great company and they do great for the communities that the coffee comes from. A percentage of proceeds that from all your orders goes back to buying water filters and sending it back to those communities. Something that you and I, Deb, we take for granted every day: clean water. And so they're doing a good thing there. So, like I said, go to taguava.com, use the promo code Remember When at checkout to receive 10% off your order.
Don't forget free shipping.
Oh yeah, as always, free shipping. Who doesn't like free shipping? Deb, I want to know what I'm putting you on the spot here. What is fountain hopping?
What is what?
Fountain hopping.
Oh. That would be a little thing that we used to do back in 1982.
What exactly? Tell me more about it. Like, you guys just go run around campus and jump fountains?
Pretty much, yeah. There are a lot of fountains. There were a lot of fountains at Stanford, and we would go from fountain to fountain. One of the best times was when somebody put soap suds into one of the fountains, and basically you had a giant bubble bath.
Oh, wow.
I believe that was at the Claw.
The reason why I do bring up fountain hopping is because today is going to be a unique twist on our guest today is none other than Deb Snyder. We're going to learn a little bit more about Deb. a lot of people, I've got a lot of great feedback on that. People like, oh, she's great. You guys have a great chemistry. You relate well, bounce off each other well. So I'm like, well, perfect. I think people need to learn a little bit more about you, because all the conversations that we've had, you're a very innovative person. You've done a lot in your life, and at all different avenues and all different paths. So, which is really cool. And I think we will be depriving our listeners and our viewers if we didn't, touch on a few of those things. And I mentioned that you said that's something you guys used to do back in 1982. It's because you are a Stanford grad, and Stanford grad, the Stanford tree, the Stanford Cardinals, fear the nerds.
Fear the nerds.
Yeah. So if we're gonna go to 1982, remember when 1982? Some fun facts that happened in the year 1982. I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm gonna rub it into you and Ray's face. I wasn't born yet in 1982.
Okay, thank you for reminding us of that. But we're well preserved.
Yes, I fired up the old Google machine. And what I learned is there was a lot of fun and innovative things that happened in the year 1982. I'm going to go ahead and start it because we go snake, 5 facts, fun facts, actual, facts from 1982. And I will start by, in 1982, one of the greatest performers of all time, Michael Jackson, released Thriller.
Ooh.
Yes.
I did have that one. I did.
I think there's a few that
second album.
Yes, released Thriller. And overall, Thriller, the song, the video for Thriller was absolutely like, crazy production and everything like that. But I think one of my favorite songs on that album have to be Human Nature.
Okay. I'm a Billie Jean fan.
Okay. both very good. I would say Human Nature and PYT, Pretty Young Thing, was another good one as well.
Pretty much every song on that album is phenomenal when you think about it, and when you see the production value, and it was so different. Michael Jackson was a genius. I mean, he really
definitely was a genius. All right, you're up.
Okay, I'm going to go with let's see. I got some good ones. 1982, we saw our very first emoji. The smiley emoji was basically invented in 1982.
Ooh.
I'm older than than emojis.
That is something I did not know.
I got one. Yes.
Yes.
Point in my corner.
All right. I'm going to stick with the music theme here.
Okay.
In 1982 was the year that Ozzy Osborne bit the head of the bat on live on stage. Yes.
And here we are seeing emojis and things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's go to, I'm going to go to entertainment then. There's this little movie called E.T. that was released. E.T. That was actually bigger than Star Wars and held the record until 1993 for best movie release. So, E.T. Phone Home.
A little fun fact: I have never seen E.T.
Ooh, with Drew Barrymore? Oh my gosh!
I've seen little clips here and there, but I've never seen the full movie.
Oh, you've got great movie. Great movie. Made Reese's Pieces. That was a big thing because apparently they couldn't do a deal with M&Ms. As part of this, there was this little trail, and they used Reese's Pieces.
See, I bet M&M's kicking themselves right now.
Probably. They were probably kicking themselves for about 9-10 years.
Right, exactly. All right, I'll jump to another one. In 1982, the artificial human heart was invented. Robert Jarvik invented the world's first artificial heart. And it was tested on Seattle dentist who volunteered to undergo the surgery.
Yeah. That was scary.
Yeah, definitely.
That was really scary. Okay. I'm going to go with the late night show with David Letterman debuted.
Ooh, yes.
His first guest was Bill Murray, who is
And,
amazingly still in the news.
Right. You see here, producers Ray showing some footages of Dr. Clark, who performed the first successful
Dr. Jarvik.
Jarvik, yes.
Yeah, that was a huge scientific breakthrough.
Yeah, definitely. Crazy. There's the dentist there sitting in the recovery room there. Very trusting.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna jump on to another one. Something fun here. 1982 was when Bud Light was introduced by Budweiser.
Oh, you got me.
Yes.
You got me on that one.
Bud Light was introduced by Budweiser, and it's still here today, still going strong. One of the most profitable beers in their lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is amazing.
Oh yeah, definitely. That, it's at that time, a light beer, and look at that commercial. How cheesy and how great. How it just reminds you of how simple times. Yeah, that was fun right there.
It was, and it's still going strong.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to go with something else that was introduced in 1982, and that was the first computer virus, the Elk Cloner. Introduced by a 15-year-old high school student who figured it out. I mean, it was amazing when you start thinking about all the things that were happening in computers at that point, and yes, I was a Stanford nerd, and yes, I was out in Silicon Valley when it was starting. So yes, I have a lot of computer facts.
See, there you go. That's why we have you. That's why we're using this, your graduation year. All right. So I'll stick in the world of technology there. In 1982, this is my last one of 5. Sony released the world's first commercial compact disc player. The first CD player was released and sold for a whopping $674, while CDs themselves sold for $15 a piece.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to have to go then with All right, I'll stick with computers. I'll stick with computers here. 1982 was when we had the first luggable computer. A luggable computer. In other words, the precursor to the laptops that we're all on right now.
Yeah, that is funny. I would like to see, lugging that to the office, lugging that on your morning commute.
Oh, I remember I had this this thing. I had an Osborne and the Osborne was about the size of a small suitcase. And you would literally, you'd carry it, and it was pretty heavy, right? And then you'd flip it open, and there was a screen that was about this, maybe it was 3x5. And it was, if you really spent money, you could get it with the orange color. Otherwise, it was all the white on black. And all we could do was play Pong, right? That was it. And we were literally programming in BASIC and using DOS to make this thing work.
Lovely. So that's our wrap up of.
There's my Osborne, the Ozzy.
There, the Ozzy.
Yeah, you can see. Look at how small that screen is.
I know, that is tiny.
Yeah, but it had all the. You could put your little disk drives in there and everything, and
good stuff.
Oh, that was an expensive one, Ray. It's got green on it.
But yeah, so let's move along here. That was, the fun facts from the year 1982. And like I talked about, earlier in the show that our guest is none other than you, Deb. Like I said, you have a lot of interesting facts about you. You're currently, you're a business owner. You're a sports law professor at Wayne State and at Michigan State. You're very innovative, being one of the first women in the auto racing world. And the big thing with the show here, it's always, a lot of the guests that we bring on, they're achieved some success. They've achieved success throughout their lives, and most of the time we see the finished product. And that's why I love this Remember When show, and that's why I love the reminiscent side of things. We just want to take you back. Like, what made you choose? Are you a West Coast or East Coast girl?
Oh, I'm kind of a little bit of both, but I'd say I'm West Coast.
Okay.
Grew up in California, moved to Michigan, back to California for college, back to Michigan for law school, just kind of back and forth. But I have this theory that wherever you are between 5 and 10 is really what you identify with.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, what do you think? You were in Liberia at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I still consider that home. Every time we have a conversation, we say back home. That's what it is. So definitely. So you're a West Coast girl.
West Coast girl.
And you ended up staying in the West Coast for your undergrad. You went to Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
What made you choose Stanford?
They let me in and gave me the most money.
hey, that's an answer. That's an answer.
I got my acceptance and I said, where is it going to be cheapest for me to go? So believe it or not, Stanford was the cheapest place for me to go because of scholarships and that.
Okay.
Although Stanford and Harvard at the time were 1 and 2 in terms of the cost,
mm-hmm.
Room and board, tuition, room and board. And this is going to blow people away. It was $15,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy compared to what it is now.
Compared to what it is now. I mean, when you look at college college costs, they've gone up so much more than inflation or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
They really have.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So when you went, what did you like growing up? When they said like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What was
I'm
it
still
that you
figuring that out?
That is true. I tell I'm never growing up. So
I am still figuring that out.
Okay.
At first it was to get to college. And once you were at college, I was going to be an engineer. And then I went into human biology and I ended up going to law school.
So what did you get your undergrad in?
Human biology and economics.
Okay. And then like what triggered law? Like what was it that made you want to go into law?
Actually, it was a little bit of you've probably figured out that I'm a little into women's rights and
I think more than a little.
Okay. Yeah. I did campaign for the Equal Rights Amendment the first time it came out back in 76. Believe it or not, we still don't have an Equal Rights Amendment. This shocks me.
Right.
It absolutely shocks me. We're one of the few, like very wealthy countries, industrialized nations that doesn't have one.
Right.
Anyways, so I was talking to some friends and they said, we're going to take the LSAT. And I said, well, maybe I'll take it too. And these were two guys and they kind of laughed at me. Well, of course I took the LSAT. But the other thing, and I think we talked about this when we were talking about 1981, the rate of inflation, we were going into this awful recession. We had unemployment was, like 18% in Michigan. Mm-hmm. So you're getting out of college and what do we all do? We look for jobs, right?
Right.
There were no jobs. So I took the LSAT and I was like, well, things have got to be better in 3 years. I'll just hide. So I hid.
Right.
And then I figured I'd, be a lawyer until something better came along.
Well,
I'm still a lawyer.
Hell, being a lawyer is not a bad backup plan.
Yeah, that was my backup plan.
Yeah. So you take that. I want to jump into more like you mentioned the fact about you're big into the women's rights and the women's movement and everything like that. So you really took when you were done, from the stories that you and I spoke about offline here. You took you're an innovator. You were one of the first women part of the whole auto racing industry.
That was a really interesting turn of events. And a lot of it had it had to do with what I was doing from the legal standpoint, because as a lawyer, I was a little bit of a techie type person. So I was always trying to, I wanted to use a computer. We didn't use computers back in the 80s. It really wasn't a thing, and I wanted to use that. And so I was doing some techie stuff, intellectual property, trademarks, copyrights types of things. And this company, they asked me to work on the website with them. And that was Championship Auto Racing Team. Someone had heard through the grapevine, through some connections, that they needed a website. They came to me because I was doing what at that point was computer law. Okay. So, I mean, can you imagine that? It was called computer law.
So exciting.
Things change so rapidly. Think about it. Think about your first iPod or your first iPhone.
Right.
Or your flip phone.
Exactly.
I mean, how quickly technology has changed is unbelievable. So I did that. They asked me if I would help put together this website, because websites were big. I mean, and there was a lot of work involved in websites. I mean, can you imagine going to your lawyer now to create a website?
Right, exactly.
So, you went to your lawyer to create a website, and we worked on all the intellectual property aspects and the privacy policies and all that kind of stuff. And I got to go out to San Francisco, work with a company called Quokka, which was really very interesting. They were doing actually America's Cup, a website for America's Cup, which was, yes, the sailing.
Yeah. The crazy,
I've been to where the boats were, where the sailboats were.
Okay. I've been to one of the America's Cup events in San Francisco. Awesome event.
Oh, have you? Oh, I'd love to go.
Yeah.
Would love to go. So from there, I was able to, I did that. And then afterwards, Championship Auto Racing Teams wanted to start a legal department. They had just gone public, and they were looking to, create this legal department. And I was fortunate enough to be asked if I'd be willing to do that. And I was like, this is great. I get to, the week before I was giving a banking law seminar, and the next week I'm standing in pit row out in Laguna Seca in California, trying not to get hit by cars that were going by 200 miles an hour.
So when you were in that, how many women were in that field?
We had, I think Sarah Fisher was racing, Danica Patrick was racing, obviously Lynn St. James, and there were a few, onesie twosies along the way, Beth Peretta, right. Shirley Maldoni, but in terms of, I wasn't a racer, I was management, and we had Vicki O'Connor, who owned Indy Lights, and Rena Shanneman, who was one of the marketing people, and very, very few.
Right. And so was that I already know the answer to this, but was that intimidating for you?
I used to joke that every time I went to a board meeting, there was no line in the women's room.
Exactly. So, but you were part of some intricate part of things. The Hans device. Can you elaborate on a little bit of what the Hans device is for people that are watching that might not know?
Okay, the Hans device is basically a plastic collar that you put on. When Dale Earnhardt crashed and tragically passed away, part of the reason was that he didn't have this Hans device, which was keeping your head and neck stable. So when you have a racer with a Hans device, then their head and neck is more stable, and it's very difficult. It protects you more. And you can see the Hans device if anybody's watching this. It just stabilizes the head and neck, which is where a lot of injuries happen if you're going at 200 miles an hour and all of a sudden you come to a stop.
Right.
Yeah. So that was something that we felt was very, very important for the safety of our racers. I mean, and it's all about safety. Okay.
Yeah. Excellent. So you did that. And then how did you get to, I want to jump to your being a professor of sports law and some of the topics that you guys talk about, because you and I have had great conversations. And I even told my cousin, hey, we got to go and sit in this in her lectures. It's great, topics from what she tells me. The students are having the opportunity to have a platform and share their ideas and beliefs and everything. So how did you get into sports law, and what are some of the topics that you guys talk about?
Well, sports law was, again, that was an opportunity. And I always tell my kids that it's about recognizing opportunities. And I'm sure you've seen that too. It's the choices you make. Am I willing to take this jump? Am I willing to do this?
Right.
So I was asked back in 2003 if I would teach a sports law class. And I was like, okay, well, I've been doing law for auto racing. Let's see what I can do with this. And created a class, used some of the textbooks that were out there and kind of created what I thought was important. And one of the misnomers is that people think sports law is a different and a separate area of law. It's not. All it is pieces of law and, subjects and legal subjects where they affect sports. Antitrust law, labor law, contract law, administrative law, intellectual property law. That's what we talk about. So I always say that my class is very much a survey class.
Okay, and that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. And then, I can bring a few war stories. I mean, we can.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the things is coming into light. I want to get into that, have a dialogue on, there's Title IX, there's inequality in sports, from gender, from race, from everything like that. And that's all part of the sports law, that you teach there. So with the whole, especially at the collegiate level, the inequality stuff, how far back do you still think women in sports are right now?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think I was, again, fortunate enough that I'm able to teach a sports and inequality class. So in addition to basic sports law, I teach sports and inequality at Michigan State, which is the class I think you're referring to, which is an absolutely fascinating, fun, and very eye-opening class. Because, racial inequality, that's huge. I mean, you look at baseball and look at some of these. A lot of sports were integrated in the late 1800s and then weren't. And there was this period of time in the 30s that we weren't going to be integrated no matter what. And then World War II hit and all the players were gone. So we had the the women's baseball league. There's no crying in baseball. A league of their own.
A league of their own. Great
Yeah,
movie.
we had all the Negro leagues. We had all these things happening. And then at the end of the war, we started to see, basically, I call it the reintegration.
Right. Yeah, that's very interesting. You talk about the reintegration, but is it really still reintegrated? Because just as far as 97, when like you look at Augusta National,
Oh,
is it, you want to think about integration and everything like that? Is it really integrated?
my personal opinion is no.
Right.
It depends on the sport. I mean, obviously, when you're looking at Augusta National and you're looking at the PGA, you are looking at a sport that was created for white Caucasian males. That was the way the PGA. And then there was this woman, this golfer, Babe Zaharias, Zaharias, who was a phenomenal golfer, who actually golfed with some of the men, and they were like, well, we'll just create the LPGA for ladies professional golf. But then, Tiger Woods, I mean.
So that brings a point to me there. Like you said, the LPGA, but don't you think like the LPGA, the WNBA, the WFA, those women's league are good? Or do you think like there should be one league that everyone gets? Because I think you and I might have a disagreement on this one here.
Oh, well, this is a really interesting subject when you ask about that. And this is something that I think is a great debate. Like,
right.
Should sports be segregated by sex, which goes to Title IX. Realistically, when you look at Title IX, do you want me to get into Title IX?
Yeah.
You're making me be a prof here, Jehuu. You're making me be a prof. So Title IX is passed in 1972, and it's all about education. Mm-hmm. And it just says, it's 37 words. No person shall be discriminated on the basis of sex. We don't quite know what sex means. We don't quite know what, discriminated means. And it's in any program that's federally funded. We don't quite know what that means either. So it's been taken, Title IX then opened up this huge world of opportunity for women. It's supposed to be educational. And it turns into very much a sports statute because colleges and universities and high schools even were getting federal funds. Mm-hmm. So they took that, and when they passed it, nobody talked about sports. If you look at the congressional history, nobody thought it was a sports statute. It was all about getting women to be able to go to college. Mm-hmm. Because there was a lot of discrimination.
Right.
Women, if you were pregnant, you got kicked out. If women weren't going to colleges.
That is, the whole thinking about all that stuff. It's wild. And, now that, myself now as a father of a daughter who will be a year in a month and a half here, it's just like, wow, it wasn't that long ago, but yet it's still prevalent right now.
Right. And, like women couldn't get credit cards in their own names. I mean, that amazes me.
Well, it's what was the song? This is a man's world.
in a lot of ways it is. But then, getting back to the whole idea of sports. So Title IX set this segregation up. Mm-hmm. And there is a theory that we shouldn't have men's sports and women's sports. We should have sports, and it should be based on size, strength, as opposed to men's and women's sports. See, and this is where you and I are going to disagree, right?
We're going to disagree with this because, like, if you say size and strength, like, what does that mean? Like, genetically,
I am not playing football against you.
Well, genetically, like, guys are genetically strong. That's why guys have testosterone
in general,
and women don't. Like in that way there. I think, yeah, there's a lot of things that I feel like women can be a part of, be, something like, I think tennis, I think Serena Williams can go and beat, a guy that's in the top 100 in the men's league. I truly believe that, but I don't think women would get a fair shake if there was just the NBA.
Right. And
I don't think any women would be playing basketball if there was just the NBA. That's why I feel there needs to be the WNBA. That gives the women a platform for them to succeed. But with that said, I think they need to generate funds and the equal amount of publicity that the NBA gets. The WNBA should get something like that. People always make the joke that no one goes to watch a WNBA game because no one has the access to it as much. It's not as advertised, for that. But being said that women and men should be, I don't feel like they should be playing, on the Sims, because I don't think it's going to give an equal platform, and I think more females will be left out as opposed.
I actually, I actually agree with you on that. I was just telling you the one theory. I know. And it's interesting because women's sports traditionally just don't have the sponsorship. They don't have the media attention. It's not there. However, if you look at marketing, you'll find that when you do market in women's sports, because it's harder to find, the audience is more engaged, and you actually get more ROI, return on investment, for your marketing dollar by marketing through women's sports than you do from the men's sports. Just the engagement is, 20 percentage points higher at least. Mm-hmm. So any sponsors out there, sponsor women's sports. It's
well, and there's some women's sports out there that do exceptionally better than you look at the women's national soccer team.
Yes.
They have number one selling jerseys. They have great attendance, great viewership, more than the men in the World Cup and in the Olympics. People get more excited to watch the women's game than they do the men. And then just recently, now it's going to that equal pay, side of things there a little bit. But I think that's something that was long overdue.
You're coming to sports and inequality. We're going to have some fun with this one. It is. But remember, the games are somewhat different. Women's tennis and men's tennis are different games. Women's soccer and men's soccer are, again, somewhat different games. Talking about the women's team and the whole equal pay aspect, they haven't done very well in their lawsuit on that one.
I thought they came out and they had a small victory or something like that.
They did have a small victory. They settled, but they didn't win a lawsuit.
Right. Okay.
And it was a good settlement. Absolutely.
Right. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but they almost lost that lawsuit based on the Equal Pay Act. And that gets into some pretty, esoteric legal aspects, as far as you have to have equal pay for equal work, and you have to prove what equal work is.
Right.
And it's a lot of times it's not equal, which isn't to say that men's are better and women's are worse. It's saying they're different.
Right. When you mentioned, men's, women's tennis, women's soccer, women's basketball is different than men's, I totally agree with you on that fact, because I feel that if you watch women's tennis, women's basketball, women's soccer, you're going to see more of a finesse game. You're going to see more of, set plays being run and everything like that. I think if you watch the men's game, the men are more athletic, so they take shortcuts. They don't use exactly all the fundamentals that the women use in their sports. So for some people, that's where I think that there's that sense of, this is boring. But if you're really a student of the game and you want to see set plays run, if you want to see fundamentals, if you're teaching, a young kid to play a sport, I would say watch the women's game over the men's game, because you're going to learn fundamentals. You're going to see, communication and everything, done that way. And I said the men's game is just, they're more athletic, so they take shortcuts and they can get away with more.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. Not more athletic. They're stronger. You're able to get away with less finesse because you're stronger.
They're more, in a way, they're more athletic.
Okay. Okay.
If you say,
we have to have some disagreement, right? We have to have some debate here.
If you say the top WNBA player and LeBron James is more athletic.
LeBron James is bigger, faster, stronger.
So therefore he's more athletic.
It depends on how you define athletic.
Run faster, jump higher, all those things.
Okay.
It's athleticism.
So your definition of athletic then is dominance. Of athleticism is dominance, right? It's a dominance theory.
Well, so
as opposed to, you can be athletic and a gymnast can be athletic.
Oh, I agree with that. But I think overall,
I'm pulling out my dictionary. What does athletic mean?
I think overall, on a scale of athleticism, I think that is, you're going to find majority. Same thing with not jumping, running, anything like that. You go like pure shooting. You put Steph Curry against the number one shooter, and he's a more pure shooter and everything like that. There's some women that will shoot the lights out over some other guys. I know that, but I think it's that skill level there. The highest of the high in both categories don't match up.
I think if you make things relatively equal, in terms of how high the basketball the
goal,
the goal, or how big the field is, or any of that stuff, you're probably going to see relatively equal levels of athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
What you won't see is it's very difficult. It would be very difficult for me to play basketball against Brittany Griner.
Right.
Okay. It would be very difficult for me to play basketball against you, just based on size. But could I play basketball against someone who was 5'4", 5'5"? Probably not, because I can't play basketball. But Ray's showing hockey right now. Really interesting fact about the women's this last year, the Winter Olympics, and the gold medal game between the U.S. and Canada actually had more viewers, the women's gold medal game, than any regular season NHL game this year.
Right. Yep, that is true. And I got, my wife's Canadian, and so it was house divided here. So I want to go from a little bit from gender. I want to go to race.
Okay.
Type of thing here. So you have a game of football. 73% of football is Black, is African American. All right. And in that you have only, I believe now, 3 out of the 32 teams have Black head coaches.
Minority coaches. I don't know that.
Well, Todd Bowles, Lovie Smith, and there's one more, and Mike Tomlinson.
Okay.
Tomlinson, yeah. So that, and then, but so my thing is this, I don't understand. And then you look at the NBA. I would say probably 80% of the NBA's Black. You go to a game like hockey, where 2%, if that, are Black. You go to tennis, where there's not many Black tennis players. Golf. Why is it that I understand, hockey's an expensive sport to play. All right. And why is it that it's not more emphasis put on I know some clubs and some teams do things to put emphasis on, bringing hockey to the inner cities so these kids can have the opportunity to do that. What's the stigma with that? Why do you think that more and more like Black athletes or minority athletes aren't having the opportunities to play in the NHL, to play, like more Black tennis players, more Black, like I said, hockey players and all those different things? Why do you think it is? You think it's all has to do with the almighty dollar?
Oh my gosh, that is a loaded question. I race and sports is such a loaded question. There's so many things. You refer to hockey being expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's expensive, but that refers to socioeconomic status, and race doesn't always, refer to socioeconomic. So
right,
there's
but
that.
with that, before you go further, like when I say expensive like that, football, all the equipment, a kid does not have to provide his own equipment for football. That's
Right.
by the school. Hockey, a kid has to provide their own equipment for hockey. They have to get rides to tournaments, and tournaments are different states, all weekend long. There's hotel, there's all these different things. So that's what I'm, saying too.
Right.
It's not as accessible.
Yeah, accessibility is a big thing. I mean, baseball is probably one of the most accessible sports.
Right.
And we have a lot of, Hispanic players.
Mm-hmm.
I think, part of it is that if you see someone like you playing, you're more inclined to say, I can do that.
Right.
And that's, that's the big thing right now is everybody saying, I want to see somebody like me.
Right.
Like, Kamala Harris, yes, you as, a Black female or as a female can be vice president.
Right.
There's somebody that's like me. So I think there's an element of that. I think there's a huge element of racism that exists amongst owners and amongst teams. I think that we're still fighting that game. Brian Flores with the NFL coaching lawsuit.
Right.
We are fighting that game. We've got the Rooney Rule. We're making changes to the Rooney Rule to try to increase, the number of women and the number of minorities who are coaching and in positions of power. The NHL really hasn't addressed the issue of racism.
Right.
And you are still seeing some of the fans as well as some of the players who are, doing the banana thing and all that kind of stuff. Black Lives Matter. The NHL did not address that.
Right.
NFL did.
Right.
In fact, the Lions were one of the first ones who came out, stopped practice, discussed it. NBA did. NHL really didn't. So there are a lot of things going on with the owners, and I think it's just a very, very loaded and difficult question. What do you think?
I think you're 100% right. I think it's a lot of the owners. It's that good old boys club. It's that mentality still, because you see these owners, they're 60, 70, 80-year-old, they're still stuck in that way. And I think there are some owners that really care about their guy. The Rooney family, I think they're a great family in ownership of sports and everything like that. And there are some owners who are deliberately racist. There's some owners who it's all about the bottom line for them. Like, what can this guy get me? And so I don't know how.
And that's a big thing too.
Right.
Because if it's about the bottom line, I'm trying to guess who my fans want to see. So Boston, which has been traditionally, one of the last places to integrate, their professional sports teams. A lot of it, there are all kinds of theories that there was whitewashing there
Yeah.
because I want to see these guys play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's really crazy, and I think that can be for even longer discussion on those types of things. But I just I feel like what I want to see is, I don't know when this tide's going to turn. I don't know if it's these. I mean, overall, I think racism is a top behavior. I don't I don't think you see a kid that goes to the playground and comes home, they say, I made a friend. They never say, I made a black friend, I made a white friend. They say, I made a friend. I don't know if these owners, if these teams are passed down generations to generation, if that's going to continue to be like that, or when that tide's going to turn. And we forget about racism, we forget about sexism. We're like, hey, the best person for the job's going to get it. If it's a woman, hey, we're going to hire a woman to be a head coach. And that's even in the NBA, there's many women that's qualified to be head coaches in there, and not there yet. We've seen a lot of movement in football with getting women to be part of the game. I think football overall, for the gender side of things, they're further ahead than most sports. I think I may be wrong on it.
Addressing it.
Yeah, for addressing it. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's if it's just a facade or if it's but I think they're further ahead in that. I think we quicker see a female coordinator, most likely probably a special teams coordinator in football than we will in any other sports.
Which then begs the question, can you coach if you've never played at that level? And I know we talked to, Dr. Jen Welter about this. Can you coach if you haven't played at that level?
Yeah, I think you can. I think it's going to be that respect factor. You have to create a culture around you that the players are going to buy into, what you're doing. And but you better win right off the bat.
Yeah.
If you're gonna come in with tough attitude. Look at the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick didn't play at that level, but he was a coach and he had success early. And so they're like, well, I'll follow him. He's winning championships. Because if you're an athlete, all you want to do is you want to win a championship. That's what you wanted. That's why you play the game.
You're an athlete. You want to win.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't matter who's going to be, chasing you and everything like that. You want to win a championship. So, I think, and also too, if these people are going for the bottom line and everything like that, I think it's going to be a splash, if they make a minority hire, female, race, gender, whatever it is, that's going to be a splash in there. You're going to get, and, like we talked about the other day, there is no such thing as bad pub.
No. You get the name out there, everybody's going to know who you are.
Exactly.
I would say that baseball is doing a pretty good job.
They're just coming. This year is the first year I'm starting to see things, come around. They're just starting to come around. Baseball. They're trying to pick up the trend there, because baseball, they need to do something because they're losing a lot of people.
Which is really interesting. America's pastime. And I talked to, just talking to people in my classes, the kids are all dying sport. We're changing baseball there and all these things, because basically we don't have any attention span anymore, right? Because we all have cell phones. So,
exactly. I mean, maybe it's just too many games,
could be, but it's also, baseball's a lot. It's based a lot on statistics, and Moneyball proved that. Michael Lewis, and when he wrote that book Moneyball about Billy Beane and the Oakland A's and all that. So baseball's more statistical in a lot of ways than almost any other sport.
Right. That I think it's more than any other sports is that analytical side of things. Yeah, but Hey, that was I think we could go on forever, but producer Ray is gonna give us the hook here soon. So I think we do need to continue these, and I love it. I want to bring some other people on and have this. We got to get Lomas on to get his thoughts on stuff like this. As Lomas is a guy that played 18 years in the league. He started back. I'm sure his experience in rookie year and everything was a lot different from my experience in the 2008s, 10s, 11s, 12s, and stuff like that. So it'll be really interesting to see, and also talk about player care. What are they doing for their players? All these sports and everything like that. Are they just an athlete, or are they taking care of them in the long run and at the end of things?
Yeah, things have certainly changed a lot. And, it's the 50th anniversary of Title IX this year.
Right, exactly.
So talking to some of the women, who were trailblazers in this. I mean, when we talk about women's sports, we're still pretty new.
Right. Exactly. All right. So we're going to wrap it up. What's one of your favorite 1982 thought? Since we were starting with that, let's wrap it with that.
Since we're going with sports, I'm going to go 1982 was the first year that the NCAA had any women's championships.
Ooh.
Can you believe that? 1982.
Do we know who won?
I know it was track and field.
Very nice.
November of 82, I believe.
I'm going to end on a light note. In 1982, a royal was born. Prince Williams was born in 1982.
I did have that fact. So was Nicki Minaj.
Oh, there we go. Who doesn't love Nicki Minaj?
Yeah.
Well, then we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for, being a part of the show. Like I said, a lot of people reached out, said we have, great chemistry. And so I just wanted people to know a little bit more about you, your background, where you come from, and where your opinions are formed and everything like that. My cousin Hastings, him and I would definitely be sitting in one of your lectures this coming fall.
Love to have you. Love to have you guys.
Yes. And as always, the Remember When podcast is brought to you by Guava Coffee, the perfect morning cup of coffee. Go to guava.com, use the promo code Remember When to get 10% off your order, and there's free shipping. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Next week, we have a really exciting guest that's going to be joining us. She was on ESPN, His and Hers. She's been in the spotlight and the news a lot. Jamel Hill will be joining us next week. We're going to have a great conversation with her, talk about her upstart in the industry and where she is now, and even hit on a couple of her controversies that went on. Really appreciate you guys for joining us. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you give us a view, give us a like. Thank you for joining us. And Deb, thank you. Producer Ray, thank you. And we will see you guys next week on the Remember When podcast.